right, we're back. It's been a little bit since I've seen you guys. My apologies, I've been out of commission. I got sick. I was pretty sick for a couple weeks there, but we're feeling better now. Voice is all better, cough's gone. You wouldn't have wanted to see me these past couple weeks anyways. So happy to be back, and let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Bottom of the pot, what didn't make the show today on this week's episode of the Morning Brew? So for starters, first thing we're not going to talk about, opening day in the MLB. Baseball season's finally underway. Now, are we not talking it because it doesn't matter? No, not at all. Of course not. We love baseball here, but the other guys on Main Street have already talked about it and are continuing to put out great content in the baseball field. So I'll leave that to them. Go check out the Instagram, TikTok, and everything else to see those guys do their thing baseball-wise, but I'll leave that for the other experts here on Main. Something else that didn't make it, March Madness. Like I said, I've been out of commission, so we haven't been able to talk about it really at all, but down to the end here now, the one thing I will say about this is March Madness, something that makes it so great is the upsets, right? All these, it seems like every year there's at least a few crazy upsets that no one saw coming that ruins everyone's bracket and this and that, but this year it seemed like there were so many upsets that when it got down to, Sweet 16, Final Four, this, that, right near the end, it seemed like the upsets really took all of everyone's favorite teams out of the tournament to the point where I feel like this year's tournament doesn't really have a ton of pull to it at this point. And that's the one thing you got to worry about with upsets is that at the end, if no one's team's left, who's watching? Right? Still a great tournament, still, some amazing games, amazing moments, but something to think about there. March Madness, not making the cut this time. And finally, to the NBA, sticking with basketball, but to the NBA, the Sacramento Kings have officially ended the longest NBA playoff drought in the history of the league. They haven't been in the postseason since 2006. Congratulations to the Sacramento Kings. They're back. What a story it's been for them this year. De'Aaron Fox has been unbelievable. The way that team has come together. I mean, absolutely nobody saw that coming. Sacramento Kings back in the playoffs. Who'll join them? How far will they go? I guess we'll have to find out, but congrats to Sacramento Kings. That's bottom of the pot. All right, first thing on the docket here, I got to talk about UFC 287 coming up soon, early April, and it's the rematch, or if you want to call it the rematches. Round 4 now, Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. They're going to go at it again. Izzy's got his chance to redeem himself for the 4th time now. A couple times in kickboxing, a couple times in MMA, here at the UFC. And fight fans know how the first one went, or the third one, if we're talking UFC, where Izzy seemed to be winning the fight, had Alex rocked a couple times, and then 5th round comes around, Pereira lands a shot, lands a couple more shots, next thing you know, shocks the world, beats Israel Adesanya, new middleweight champion, and here we are again. Izzy handled it like a champ after. He loves to do his everything with his walkouts to the type of content he puts out. It's all like movie stuff. It's all, very, well thought out and very much like everything is out of a movie. So he said, I think, another chapter goes to Alex. I'll be back, this, that. And here he is. He's back now. What does he change? I don't know. It seems like Pereira is just one of those guys. Sometimes in sports, some guy has another guy or some girl has another girl's number. And it seems like Pereira just so happens to have Adesanya's number here. And for Izzy, what's tough now is knowing that even if you fight a better fight, like he did last time, he was absolutely going to win the fight if it went the distance. He's shown you now, Pereira has, that doesn't matter. You got to fight the full 25 minutes. Even if he's down, even if he's beaten, he can still find a way to catch you. And as talented of a striker as both of these guys are, anything can happen. But what I wanted to bring this to with this fight, depending on how it ends on both sides, if Izzy wins or if Pereira wins, this changes the middleweight division in two drastically different ways. So what does Dana White and the brass want to happen? Right? I'm not talking about rigged fights or anything like that, but if you're leaders of a company and you're looking forward in what's going to make the company better for the long run, what do they want to happen? Because like I said, if Izzy wins or if Pereira wins, it's two massively different outcomes. Right? If Adesanya regains his belt, takes the throne back, it's a great story, he finally overcomes his demons. Well, what happens after that? Because I'm looking at the middleweight rankings right now. If he gets past Pereira and gets his title back, he's run through the division already. He'll have beaten Alex Pereira, Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, Paulo Costa. That's the top 5 guys in the rankings. He's beaten all of those guys already, some of them more than once. It takes all the way down till number 6 before you get to a guy like Dricus du Plessis, who's moving his way up in the rankings. But haven't we seen Adesanya fight a guy like that before? Really in like a Marvin Vettori, Robert Whittaker type guy? Not taking anything away from him. I think Dricus is great, and he's moving his way up, maybe at the perfect time. But for Adesanya, what happens if he wins is what I'm getting to, is that he kind of puts the division back on hold. He's taken out all the top contenders. The guys that are really next up for him aren't necessarily maybe ready for that title shot spot, aren't really ready. They still need a fight or two to really get to a number 1 contender spot. Even guys down the road, but guys people that are looking up for, someone like Bo Nickel, guys like that. Again, a guy that's not ready. So if Adesanya wins, it kind of puts the division back on hold here. Where if Pereira wins, what does it do to Adesanya? I don't know. Now he's got to start fighting these other guys that he's already beaten again. It does a weird thing for Izzy, but if Pereira wins, well, now breath of fresh air comes into the middleweight division. Robert Whittaker all of a sudden thinks, hey, I think that's a pretty good matchup for me. Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, Paulo Costa, Dricus du Plessis, like we're saying, Derek Brunson. These guys, all of a sudden, a lot of these guys might think this is a better matchup for them, right? Because Pereira, unbelievable striker, we know his ground game isn't his strong suit. So there are a bunch of guys in this division that are more than capable wrestlers, right? They just kind of ran into Izzy, and Izzy's so hard to get down. You come in, you get clipped, that they couldn't really show any of that part of their skill set. But if Pereira's the champion, like I said, guys like Vettori and Whittaker and Cannonier, those guys are probably licking their lips for a shot at that guy. And then at that point, now we have a division that's moving, a division, and you can argue, is that good for the division to maybe have a couple champions here in a short span? Or does Pereira just keep it and just keep knocking everybody out? I don't know, but it at least seems like it's a little bit more of a situation where there might be a little bit more, like we said, breath of fresh air into the division if Izzy doesn't win it. Am I making a prediction? Absolutely not. But you just got to think of that. If Izzy wins and if Pereira wins, it's two massively different outcomes for the UFC's middleweight division in general. And then what about a guy like Khamzat Chimaev? Not even really, I don't believe he's even ranked right now in the middleweight rankings. He's not. He's not in the top 15 of the UFC's middleweight rankings, but he has fought at middleweight. He's clearly big enough to do so. We've seen him have weight problems getting down to 175 before. But if Khamzat Chimaev decides he wants to come back to 185, I give him a great shot against Pereira, absolutely, but any of these guys that might be at the top, right? So the middleweight division, depending on what happens here, is in such a flux that it's really, for the first time since Adesanya won the belt, and that was years ago. So am I going to make a prediction for this main event? I might. I won't do it yet, though. If I do, it'll be on a video later, a little bit closer to the fight. But I'm just raising that, as something for everyone to think about, that depending on what happens in this fight, the future of the middleweight division can go in it's a fork in the road, two completely different directions. The direction we've seen where it's kind of stuck, Izzy back at the top, no one can really challenge him, or the newer direction with Pereira. Pereira holds the belt, beats Adesanya, and then all these other guys are licking their lips, and who knows what'll happen after that. So this fight has as big of an implication for any division in the UFC that I've seen in quite a long time. Okay, we'll actually head over to the NFL here. It's still the off season, right? The draft is coming up, but one of the biggest talking points right now isn't the draft. It's the Lamar Jackson saga, if you want to call it that. We know he's been looking for a deal for quite a while now. Still doesn't have one. What does Baltimore want to do? What does he want to do? There's been a trade request. This is sort of something that's kind of balled together into a pretty gigantic story now, and Lamar Jackson is sort of left in limbo. One of the NFL's premier quarterbacks, I would say, at least. Is he top 5? Who knows? Is he top 10? I would say absolutely. So what happens with Lamar Jackson? Is there a chance that he stays with the Baltimore Ravens? Right? Lamar put out recently, I think it was in a social media post, he tweeted it out, that he requested a trade from the Ravens on March 2nd. Now that only came out recently, the tweet did, but that trade request, we're here now, late March, early April. It's been a month that the Ravens organization has had that information. So while we've only known this for about a week, maybe a little bit longer, the organization who was told to trade him has had a month to figure this out, and they haven't been doing it. So while some people think that, he's definitely out of there, he's going to get traded any day, look, the Ravens are a well-run organization, one of the better-run organizations in the NFL, and they've had a trade request to get rid of their star quarterback for over a month, and they haven't budged. So when everyone's thinking, he's definitely out of there, I'm not so sure, at least for now. I think eventually the long-term future of Lamar and the Ravens, I would say, is probably not going to last forever. I don't think he'll find, I wouldn't say that I'm very optimistic that they'll be able to come to terms on a long-term contract, but I actually think there's a good chance that Lamar has to stick around, kind of bite the bullet, realize he doesn't necessarily have any leverage here, sign the franchise tag and get through one more season and see what happens after. Because if you look at the teams, whether they're interested or not, what are the best landing spots for Lamar? There isn't really one or two that point out as that's it. This or that, it makes sense. The pieces, the trade, let's get a deal done. Right? We've heard of a couple teams. For a while, everyone was talking about the Falcons. Get him to Atlanta, play with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, kind of help build that organization back up. But the Falcons have since named Desmond Ridder their starting quarterback and have sort of said that they're not really into trading for Lamar. So you can kind of cross that one off the list. Then the New York Jets. I think it would be a great fit with those young receivers, young defense, young running back. You put Lamar in there as a leader, give him a new deal. You kind of got this core of young talent to build with going forward for a team that's absolutely on the uptick, but the Jets seem locked into Aaron Rodgers. Whether you think you'd rather have Rodgers or Lamar, that's up to you. If it was me, I would rather the younger player, sign him for a long term, continue, like I said, to build with this young nucleus. But they seem to be all in on Rodgers. They hired Nathaniel Hackett, right? All this talk's been out. Rodgers says he wants to play for the Jets, so you can kind of cross the Jets off. Then we go to the Patriots, because Lamar recently supposedly has told people that he wants to play for the Patriots. Bill Belichick has since said that Lamar Jackson's not free. We can't just go get him. What are the odds the Patriots make a huge blockbuster trade deal? When was the last time you saw that happen? Not very high of a chance that I think that happens. And Lamar, if he struggles with anything, what is it? Certain aspects of his passing game, right? I think he actually has a really underrated deep ball, but some of those intermediate short throws, that's where he leaves something to be desired, if anything. And New England is notorious for not being able to get it right with the pass-catching position. Lamar needs to have a guy, right, to take the full advantage of his skill set with his running and throwing and everything in between. He needs a guy. New England doesn't have one. Belichick doesn't seem very interested. I don't think you can go with the Patriots either. And then some people are talking about the Colts because they have the number 4 pick. Right, the Colts are definitely in the market for a quarterback, but by the time it gets to 4, we know quarterbacks are going at 1 and 2. Will someone trade up to the third spot to take another quarterback? What I'm getting at is by the time it gets to Indianapolis's pick, they may have to pick from the fourth, the third or fourth option quarterback-wise. So would you rather just trade that away, get Lamar Jackson, bring him in? But again, no elite pass catchers there. The Colts really ready to win. Not necessarily. Does it make a ton of sense for Lamar himself? Not so much. So what I'm getting at, I don't think there is really any clear-cut fits for Lamar right now at this stage of where the NFL is at. Maybe after the draft, if there happens to be some blockbuster trades, maybe during the season if there's an injury, this and that, who knows? But as of right now, as crazy as it seems and as sour as the relationship is becoming between Lamar and the Ravens, I'd have to put my money on Lamar playing another year in Baltimore.